religious holidays, all of these things are points of gathering for Cajun families.
Language is a very important factor in the Cherokee culture. It began with Sequoyah in the early 1800s. He developed a syllabary, and in 1821 it was adopted as the official written language among the Cherokees. And it eventually allowed for Bible verses to be translated into Cherokee, and it allowed for papers to also be printed in Cherokee. It gave access for the people to read and write, and in time, many publications were being translated into Cherokee. It just made a whole new world available to the Cherokee people. And in about 6 months after the language was adopted, it is said that half of the Cherokee population became literate. And when the Cherokees came out west, it is said that they were more literate than their white neighbors were because of this vast knowledge that they had assumed through this invention of the alphabet.
My kids talk Chinese at home. My parents taught them in Chinese. They always tell them that it's your disadvantage if you does not know how to speak Chinese. It doesn't mean that you stay in Clarksdale all the time. Sometimes you might go to San Francisco, meet a group of Chinese who does not speak English fluently. And maybe you might want to call back to China for visits. I was taught by my parents to value the Chinese heritage and the culture.
You asked the question about being Chinese, are you different? Well, sure, we're different. You know, if we go to the ballpark and our kids are playing on the ball team, you know, the other parents are there. They don't have to ask you which one's your child. Your child's the Oriental out there. You know, there's a physical difference. But that's something that, you know, we teach our kids, that you're born in America, your parents are Americans, you're American, but you are also Chinese by blood.
Each of the subcultures we've been examining has its own folkways and values, which are reflected in their religion and everyday life.
It means a lot to be Cherokee, personally and tribally. Our tribe has endured a lot of hardships, and I'm very proud that we've come through all of that. I value family and community very highly, and the fact that we are a matriarchal society. I am a woman, and that places me in the tribe in a position to do more, to have strong self-determination.
Well, I think one of the things that you're going to find talking to different Chinese across the Delta is everybody feels that education is the key to success. You know, there's a respect for knowledge in Chinese, among the Chinese. There's no question that we're visibly different as far as just looking at people, but all of us have been brought up with some customs and traditions that we still celebrate. We recently had the Chinese New Year celebration, and Clarksdale's unique in the Delta that the Chinese shared it with the entire community. We had 400 people at a Chinese New Year's banquet, the Year of the Horse. We had it at the City Auditorium. The Chinese cooked and prepared a meal that the community attended and had over 400 people.
Because of the Catholic background in this area, which is unique to the South, it has fostered a tradition of only marrying other Catholics, first of all, and basically which has helped us to preserve the culture. If you only married Catholics, of course, it meant that you observed the same religious holidays. It meant you observed a lot of the same cultural habits. Until very recently, Cajuns did not marry Jews or Protestants.
Being a servant, you next particular...
I was grown up in the United States, and of course, I have no experience of the old Chinese tradition, Buddhism, and all my children went to school at the Clarksdale Baptist and graduated from the school, and they're baptized. My wife and I are baptized at the Crossdale Baptist. And that's all we know. God is all we know. We don't know any other religions. And also, there's no temple around this area, so it's pretty hard for them to go to the temple and pray. You know, like in Chinatown, there's temples there, and people that, like our older generation, have a way to go and for their prayer. Over here, and it's all scattered. There's no temple around for the Buddhism belief to go in and worship.
The Chinese of the Delta, the Cajun descendants of Evangeline, the Cherokee of Oklahoma. Each of these groups has endured through time and through its encounter with the dominant culture because of its shared values, traditions, language, and customs. They are peoples bound together by a powerful sense of belonging. Yet there is a dark side to this special sense of belonging, especially when a dominant culture clashes with cultures it perceives as inferior to its own. It is a concept called ethnocentrism, and it can lead to episodes of terrible bigotry and injustice.
Well, ethnocentrism, I think, is one of the most useful concepts in sociology. It means quite literally being culture-bound, seeing the world through your own glasses. And I think that what North American Indians or Native Americans suffered at the hands of whites during the great expansion of the West, it's a very good example of how powerful the biases are. The ethnocentrism of the white man in this case meant that he didn't understand a thing about those he was helping, he thought, to bring to civilization, and in doing this not only destroyed their herds themselves, but also their culture. So ethnocentrism can be a very powerful and very dangerous thing.
It's estimated that about 34 million buffalo wandered the plains in the time of Crazy Horse. By 1880, only 500 animals remained, most in Canada. Buffalo Bill Cody killed more than 4,000 buffalo in 18 months. He took the hides and tongues and left the meat to rot. Once, on a wager, he killed 69 buffalo in a single day. To the Plains Indian, the buffalo was at the heart of spiritual life. When the buffalo were taken from them, it was a tragedy not only of the flesh, but of the spirit as well.
Years ago, buffalo was the most important part to the Comanche Indians. But as the Indian depended upon the buffalo, white man came, slaughtered many, many buffaloes and to lead them on the field, whereas the Comanches used the buffalo to make a blanket, moccasins, for the teepee, food, for medicine. Once, when the white man began to slaughter the buffaloes, on the orders of someone, a landowner, or man, a baron or whatever he was, paid each and every white man to go in there and kill the buffalo because he wanted that land for himself. In that manner, the Comanches were driven west. Comanches depended so much upon the buffalo. Once that was gone, no other way could they live as they had been living before the buffalo meat. So they depend upon small animals such as deer, rabbit, and generally turned toward the cow. But the cow was not like a buffalo. But then they used that, made medicine out of that buffalo. What it was, I don't know, but Daddy told me that when I was a child. That we used that for medicine. Only the medicine man in the tribe knew that. They did. Other Indians depended on buffalo also, but they had their own way. Their way of thinking was different from the Comanches. It was sacred to them. Some did regard the buffalo as the Lord God at that time, but now it has all gone away. No, The white men at that time did not realize what it meant to the Comanches, or they didn't even care. They were ordered to go in there and slaughter the buffaloes. But see, they didn't realize what it meant to the other human beings at all. With the disappearance of buffaloes, the minds of the elderly people seemed as though that they were not there at all. They were lost completely. They cried and cried.
We have been examining culture, the way of life of a people, and how people throughout the world adapt to changing environments. We've seen how diverse groups and subcultures have formed what is known as the American people. America is a constellation of widely varied cultures on a journey through time. Cultures trying to preserve their special identity while seeking to reap the benefits of the larger cultural pattern of which they are an integral part. Since the beginning of the American experience, these cultures have been in constant contact and quite often in conflict. It is the contact and conflict between these many diverse cultures that bring out what is finest and what is most flawed in the American character. Experience has shown that conflict between cultures can usually be diminished or avoided by knowledge and understanding. Perhaps as the journey of the American people continues toward tomorrow, we will grow to respect each other not only for those traditions and values we share, but for those that make us different one from another.
Culture is everything that mankind does and makes, everything in the man-made environment. And culture also is a response to challenges in the environment.
You know, when I think of the American people, I tend to think in terms of the fact that everybody in this country came from someplace else, so that the roots go back to many, many different societies and many different cultures.
Most people who we now know as Acadians came from the province of Nova Scotia in the 1750s.
The Cherokees thrived in southeastern United States for about 500 years. It was a land base in North Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, and Alabama.
I have never been able to find out exactly who the first Chinese settler was here, other than that it went back to the early 1900s. My father came over in 1912.
Comanches depended so much upon the buffalo. Once that was gone, no other way could they live as they had been living before.
We have been examining culture, the way of life of a people, and how people throughout the world adapt to changing environments.
This is PBS.